Do you have lates on your credit reports? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you a quick and easy way to actually get rid of and positively update those lates on your credit reports. So let's get into it. All right, so the good news and the bad news. Let's go with the bad news first. The bad news is getting lates off your credit reports is probably one of the hardest things to do. I know you're probably thinking, Monica, that's not what I wanted to hear. But from my experience, because these are open revolving accounts that you currently have a business relationship with, notably and probably most popularly would be your credit cards, but this could also include loans as well. This is the hardest because they're already open revolving accounts and they have an established and ongoing relationship with you, and they're constantly continuing to report on your credit reports, and it's not just a dead as a doornail deal like it would be with a charge off or anything else that's on your credit. And so it's harder to get these off and it's harder to get them positively updated. So there is a different strategy other than just simply disputing like you would with the rest of your, gone credit, your closed accounts, namely most easily to get off it would be credit collection agencies, but other closed accounts from, the longer the better, very easy to do with the disputing process, which I talk about in many of my videos. However, lates are handled differently. So first and foremost, let's talk about when you would dispute a late. I always tell people that when you start the disputing process, you want to target your older accounts, your closed accounts first, okay? So if you want to go ahead and target your lates at the same time, it's going to have to be a different letter. And by the way, most of you know by now that I strongly believe in offline disputing, which is sending physical letters by way of trackable mail to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, which are the three credit reporting bureaus, rather than doing any of the disputing online. So this is not any different. You do not do any online disputing with regard to lates, okay? So say, for example, you do have a bunch of closed accounts on your credit reports and you want to start the process of disputing. Well, this means that if you have some open revolving accounts that have late pays or late showing lates, you want to hold off on disputing those at least for a couple of weeks, okay? So you'd first initially send out your dispute letters for your closed accounts first. All right, and again, you send a letter to Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. You can pile on as many of these accounts as you want per letter. You don't have to send one letter per account. If you have five, say you have 5 accounts you want to dispute, you could put 5 accounts on Experian letter, 5 accounts on Equifax letter, and 5 accounts on a TransUnion letter, okay? So you send those letters out by way of trackable mail. Does not have to be certified, just trackable. Does not have to be signature confirmation. Again, just trackable, okay? Then you allow the 30 days to take place after they receive the letter. And then you just wait to see what comes off. In the meantime, you're probably thinking, well, what do I do about these lates? Or maybe I have a couple of you that have told me by way of messaging me through my school app that you just have lates and you don't have anything else. And that's cool, but again, the problem is it's going to be harder to get them off. So if you're going to be following this up after you file disputes with your closed accounts or your charged off accounts, you'd want to wait at least 2 weeks, okay? Or if all you're trying to do is dispute lates, then you can just start off with the process of disputing your lates. You're going to have to send a letter to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion to dispute the lates, all right? And because you have a current existing relationship with these open revolving account banks and lenders, they're going to be on it sending proof that you're late by basically sending statements to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion during the 30-day investigation period. So don't expect much to fall off with your first round of disputes. However, you just want to go ahead and do it because you never know if it's a smaller bank. They might be, not paying attention when the dispute comes in, and because they don't send anything back to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion to dispute your claim that you've never been late, then it might just simply update favorably by basically saying that you've never been late, which is what you want. However, when you're dealing with the larger banks, we're talking Capital One, Citibank, American Express, every other one that's out there, you're going to have the disputes update, and it's not going to be favorably. It's just basically going to say that it updated, and guess what? You're on the hook for that late being on your credit report forever, okay? So here's another way to deal with it. After you do your first initial round of disputes, which is again going to be the same exact way that you would do any other dispute, by sending a letter saying that this information is incorrect, and go so far as to say, I've never been late on this account. And let's say you have like 3 of those. You say you have 3 late, so you pile them all on one letter to Experian, one letter to Equifax, one letter to TransUnion, saying these accounts have never been late. None of them have ever been late. And so I want you to thoroughly investigate this with these 3 banks, okay? So what'll happen is, once they receive the letter, they have 30 days to do their investigation and then come back to you with proof. You know, they're not going to give you the proof, but they have to do an investigation for 30 days. And likely what's going to happen is those banks and lenders are going to send in proof, which is just going to be a statement and nothing more than that, okay? So don't expect any miracles from this. This is something you need to work on, all right? Now, the next step after the 30 days goes by, and by the way, anytime you are communicating with Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, make sure that you include a copy of your current driver's license showing your current physical address, or a copy of your passport. Both of them have to be valid. So whichever one you choose to cough up for them and give a copy of, it needs to be valid. Somebody asked me the other day in the comments about whether they can send in an expired one. It's like, hello, take your lazy ass to the DMV, and if you don't qualify to drive anymore, at least get yourself a state ID. It's like, people are just so lazy today. I don't understand what's going on. Get yourself a valid ID, okay? And mail that in, a copy of that in, with 2 utility bills showing your name and your current address. And if you don't have utility bills, you have maybe a voter registration card, maybe you have an insurance bill, cell phone bill, you know, maybe you have a credit card statement, whatever you have, bank statement, something that you have to show proof of your current address. Now, mind you, if you do choose a credit card statement or you choose a bank statement, be sure to Sharpie out your information about your account number. Sharpie out all of it. You don't want any of that personal, information on there, but you do want to have your name and address, and it needs to be within the last 45 to 60 days max to show that you currently live at that address, okay? So you want to be able to send that identification in so that they don't kick out your dispute. So then what happens then after the 30 days goes by and you did not receive a positive update, whereas basically they took the lates off? Well, then you have to go to step 2. And so there's step 2 is kind of split because you have to do kind of 2 things at once. Number 1, you're going to have to send in what we call a method of verification, or an MOV letter, to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion for each one of those lates. So say, for example, there was 3 lates like I gave you the example before, or maybe one late shows on Capital One, maybe one's Bank of America, and maybe one's American Express, okay? So you're going to have to send 3 different letters to Experian, 3 different letters to Equifax, 3 different letters to TransUnion to represent each one of those accounts that you are disputing. And the method of verification letter basically demands to know how Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion by federal law did their 30-day investigation, and also asking for the proof that was furnished from these banks showing that in fact that needs to remain on your credit reports, okay? So that needs to be sent also by trackable mail, and that's a lot of letters, because instead of being 3 letters now, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, now it's 9, or however many accounts you actually are going to be disputing. So that's a lot more letters, and it has to be sent trackable. In the meantime, you can do one of 2 things. So this is part 2 of this. At the same time, after your 30-day investigation and it did not favorably update, the second part is that you need to communicate with and contact the credit card issuing banks or the lender directly to show proof that you were in fact late on those accounts, okay? So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can watch my video about the empty envelope, send them a certified letter asking for basically proof of the debt, but there's nothing in the envelope. You can use that strategy. I did another video on that, which you can find on my channel. Or you can actually send them a letter, which is in my getdisputeletters.com website. You can get that for free, and you can download it for free. And basically the letter states, show proof that I was late on this account. You need to show proof, okay? Now, I don't really recommend sending them the letter yet. You could choose to do the empty envelope, or you can ask for a Goodwill exemption, but the Goodwill exemption only exists for people who've been late once, maybe twice on their account in the totality of the account, okay? So I have a Goodwill letter that you can get for free at getdisputeletters.com. You can see that down below in the description box. I have an alternative website now. If you're having problems getting to that website, you can go to secretcreditletters.com. And what you can do is you can send them the Goodwill letter. Again, you want it to be trackable mail, does not have to be certified. And many times they will update it favorably if you do have a good credit history with them. And this is just a one-off thing where you were late, maybe the payment got lost in the mail. They understand that stuff like that does happen. And so instead of sending an actual letter demanding proof that you were late at this point, my first letter outside of the empty envelope would be to send for a Goodwill exemption, okay? And again, that only applies to those of you that have not had chronic lates. If you've had chronic lates, forget that letter. Skip the Goodwill letter. It's not going to help you, okay? Because they're going to know that you have not been paying and you have been showing, financial irresponsibility, and they don't want to help you out. However, if it has been a one or two off thing, then ask for the Goodwill instead of asking for proof of your lates, okay? So that's what I would do if I was just a one-off, two-off thing. Send the Goodwill letter. If you know that you have not been financially responsible, then you're going to have to either send the empty envelope or you're going to have to send for proof that they can show that you were late. And they're going to just keep sending you statements over and over again. They're just going to send you statement after statement after statement showing that you were late. That's what they're going to keep doing. That's why I recommend you do the empty envelope strategy first, which again, I did another video on that. I will link it down below in the description box so that you can see it, how that works. Do that first, because what will end up happening is that you could show that card that they received. They're going to stamp it with the date. You're going to receive that card back in the mail. You send a copy of that card along with the letter you sent, which you could find for free at getdisputeletters.com. You send that off to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, saying that you tried to get proof that you were late on the account, but they sent nothing back to you. Okay, that can sometimes work as well. But I try to tell people all the time, if you've only been late like once, maybe twice maximum in the lifetime of the debt, ask for the Goodwill exemption. I would start there first. You could start with the dispute process, but you could also send the Goodwill exemption in at the same time or within a couple weeks after that if it doesn't fall off during the investigation period, because a lot of these banks will just do the Goodwill exemption. They might even do it if you call them on the phone and just say, hey, I sent the payment in, I don't understand, this has never happened to me before. And you might not even have to send any letters in at all, and you might not even have to do any disputes at all. Simply call them up on the phone, just say, hey, I don't understand what happened, I don't understand why it was late, I just noticed that this is on my credit report, I did send that payment in last September, I mailed it in, I guess you guys didn't get it, it might have gotten lost in the mail. Since I do have such a good payment history, will you do a Goodwill exemption for me, or an exception for me? And many times they will. Many times they will, just for asking, and then you don't even have to deal with disputes, letters, nothing, and empty envelopes, deal with any of that expense. So again, you have to assess your personal situation, because I can't do that for you. I don't know whether or not you have 10 lates in the last 2 years, or whether you have 1 or 2 lates in the last year or two. I have no idea. So you have to do your own personal assessment to determine what the best course of action would be for you. So again, if you do have 1 or 2 lates within, say, the last 1 or 2 years, then pick up the phone, call them and just say, hey, can I get a Goodwill exception here? Whereas I have a good payment history, I did mail in that. Or if you were in any area that was affected by any kind of natural disaster in the last year or two, around the time that you had dealt with a late, you could just say, hey, I mailed in the payment, but because we had a flood at that time, or we were dealing with a hurricane, or we were dealing with whatever, fill in the blank, maybe you guys didn't get it on time, but I did mail that payment in, and I didn't even realize that you put a late on my credit report until now when I was looking at my credit report. So can you do a Goodwill exception for me? And many times they will do it. But if you have a ton of lates, don't even waste your time with the phone call. Don't waste your breath. Not going to work in your benefit. Not going to work in your favor. And you're going to have to do the other strategies, starting off with the disputes, which again have to be separate than your regular disputes. You cannot pile on late disputes with regular disputes. You can't do that. You can, it just won't be effective, okay? And then, of course, doing the method of verification and all that good stuff after the 30-day period goes by with the dispute investigation process. So that's how you get lates off. But I will warn you, it's not easy. It doesn't happen quickly. And many times you're going to have to find yourself constantly disputing and disputing and disputing and constantly sending information over and requests over to your banks and lenders that are still showing that you have a late on there. It might take a couple of years. Yes, it's probably one of the hardest things to get off. I remember I had a late on one of my credit cards back in the day, and it was one late, and it wasn't even just a payment on like anything I bought. It was a payment on, the monthly fees that sometimes these second chance credit cards, tag you with or make you pay. I think it was around $15 or something. And the payment was mailed in, but unfortunately they didn't receive it for one reason or another. And I didn't even realize it until I think 6 months later on my credit report that it showed that I had a late. And then I go to my bank and realize they never cashed a check, likely because they never received it. And I decided to go balls to the walls on it and do all the disputing when I probably should have picked up the phone and asked for a Goodwill exemption or exception first before, trying to fight fire with fire at that point. But I didn't know any better. I'm just like, well, I'm just going to dispute it like everything else. And it was just one late, and it was because there was a fee and they just didn't receive it when I mailed the check in. So, a lesson learned, that you can learn from me on my behalf, at my expense, whereas you just simply pick up the phone and ask for that Goodwill exception first. If it's a one-time deal, explain you mailed in the payment. Don't say you forgot about it. Don't say any of that stuff. Just say you mailed it in, but must have got lost in the mail. And would they do a Goodwill exception? Most above board lenders and banks will. Some of the shady ones probably won't. So it just depends. So you just got to ask first, but you pick up the phone first for them. And then if they don't do it, then you got to do the dispute process. Then you got to do the whole method of verification letter. Then you got to send the empty envelope and all that other good stuff. And then you got to constantly keep doing wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat over and over again until it comes off. Meanwhile, here's a tip for you on how to pay these credit cards. Within about a couple days or so, 5 days or so after your credit card statement closes for the month, it then opens you up for being able to make your first payment, which would be your minimum payment that's due on that credit card. So I have a way where I constantly keep up on my stuff, making sure I'm never late on anything, where the very moment I can make that first payment, I'm making the minimum payment. So then that way I know that even if I mail in a payment later or something goes wrong with my bank account or whatever later on the last day when the final balance is due or the next payment that I want to make is going to take place, I make sure that first minimum due payment is always made. And I make sure that I do it right the very moment I can actually make that first payment. So say it's $35. I'm making that $35 payment the very second I can make it. I'm not waiting until the last day when it's due. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm making that $35 payment, and then later on in the month, a couple weeks later or toward the end when the payment is due, I'm either paying the whole balance off or I'm paying a larger sum of money depending on, and it's up to you on what you can afford. But I recommend you start making those payments a couple times a month. Don't just make one payment on your credit card a month. Pay the minimum payment right away, the second that you can, immediately after the last billing cycle closes, whenever they open it up to your first payment, and then make another payment, close to the end or when on the last day when your payment's due. And then that way you make sure that you never are late again. This is your financial responsibility. This is your future. We are a credit dependent society, and you need to make sure you take care of these things, So lesson learned, you screwed up. Oh well, you move forward, okay? And you might be complaining, well, Monica, I can't afford to make the payments. Okay, well, first of all, why'd you run up the debt in the beginning? Second of all, find yourself some side hustle business opportunity. We live in North America. Most of you're in the United States. You can all speak English because you're listening to me. You are in one of the best economies in the entire world, and opportunities are endless. So if you're going to sit there and make a bunch of excuses as to why you can't make extra money or why things are not working out for you, why you're so poor or broke, I don't want to hear it anymore. I get these in the comments all the time. I'm disabled, I'm retired, I'm pitiful, I'm this, I'm that. We live in such an abundant society. There are so many side hustles that you could do online. I even talked about it last week where there's some side hustles you can do with AI, and you can get started with the business for free. And yet so many of you don't take advantage of these opportunities that are right in front of you because you're too busy making excuses. So if you're one of these people that's having a hard time paying your bills, especially paying them on time, find a side hustle. I mean, some of these side hustles, yeah, they only make maybe between $500 and $1,000 a month to start. But man, that $500 to $1,000 a month will help you out a lot when it comes to at least making your minimum payments on time. And then maybe you can ramp up the business over time to where you're making a lot more. So then that way you can cover all of your debt and pay it all off finally and get out of all that interest, right? So you have to think outside of the box. You got to stop making excuses. You got to stop doing the whole pity party, feel sorry for me crap, because it doesn't hold water for me. You know, it just does not, because there's just way too much opportunity out there that I've seen. I've seen people just like you in some of the worst financial situations and some of the worst credit situations. And because you make a decision with your brain first, you decide here first, hey, Monica said that I'm in the land of opportunity. I am. Now I'm finally opening my eyeballs and seeing it. I'm watching her videos. I can figure out how to do a side hustle business that costs me nothing to start. I'm starting to see the light of day now. I'm not going to let excuses take the better of me. I'm better than that. I'm better than a bunch of excuses. I don't care if you're in a wheelchair. You can do some of the opportunities that I've talked about on this channel. So if you need the money to pay these cards off, I don't want another excuse and another comment from anybody saying that you're too poor and pitiful and lame to follow up with any of the opportunities I've talked about. Yes, some of them are complicated. Some of them do cost money to get into, but the ones I've been talking about lately cost next to nothing or nothing to get involved in. So there's literally no excuses. I've taken all the excuses away from you, okay? The only excuse is you. So you need to find the time. You can find the time. You can find 30 minutes to 60 minutes a week to start with and set up your business, okay? So no more excuses, man. You know, the only reason you're in this situation is because maybe you've made some poor decisions. Don't beat yourself up for it. The past is the past. But now today and moving forward, it's time for you to finally take the bull by the horns and actually do something about your financial situation and your credit situation, because that is really, truly all on you, okay? So if you found that this was helpful, give me a nice thumbs up, as well as subscribe to my channel. That helps me out a lot. Drop me some comments on some other things that you'd like me to talk about down below. And in the meantime, please get my dispute letters at getdisputeletters.com or my Mir website, secretcreditletters.com. That's down below in the description box. Also, please join my community at school.com/Monica Main down below, where there's over 5,000 of you like-minded individuals that are enjoying my free books, including my Credit Millionaire book, that not only teaches you how to repair and rebuild your personal credit, but it also teaches you how to gain access to business credit as well. And that's for free when you join my group, okay? I have a lot of other trainings, I have a lot of other free courses and so forth, but most importantly, you'll be able to network with some amazing, awesome people. I'm in love with my group. I seriously am. I just love you guys and gals that are part of the group. It gives me a purpose, but it also allows you to network with other people as well that are maybe going through some of the same things that you're going through. So again, that's school.com/Monica Main, and you can get a part of this free group. As long as you lock it in for free now, you'll never have to pay in the future, but in the future I will start charging for the group. So you want to get in now while you still can, all right? This is Monica Main signing off, and I will see you in the next video.